that's where it started.
Hello, this is Paul.
This is Laura.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Alton.
We are Team Derringer.
And you are listening to Derringer Discoveries,
Where we take you, the listener, on an adventure.
a music adventure.
Did you see that man?
Listeners, today we have 3 out of 4 members of Team Derringer present. Laura Derringer is unfortunately absent today, but she is no doubt listening, and I'm sure she's going to provide us with helpful feedback.
And there was much rejoicing.
After all, before Laura was a Derringer, she was one of our most dedicated listeners.
Recently, we heard from one of our listeners in Australia. He caught our attention in 3 ways. The first way, he is an accomplished musician, having recorded and performed with a number of well-known international bands. The second way, he's living in Australia, and we like to make sure that our listeners in Australia know that we are listening to them. The third way, this year, 2026, he wrote a book that Paul is holding up right now for our podcast listeners. So Paul loved it so much, he said, look, let's make an episode from this. And here we are.
So what is this book about? Well, listeners, stick around and you'll find out, or you could just read the title of the episode and get a hint. But we'll let our special guest introduce himself. So a big welcome to Joe Matera. Thank you for joining us for this episode.
Yeah, Joe, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me, guys, and thank you to your interest in my book and my music. And hello to all the listeners out there who are listening to this great podcast. Yeah, my name is Joe Matera, and I'm from Melbourne, Australia.
Do you speak any languages other than English?
Oh, yeah. I speak 2 different languages. Well, my main language, obviously, is English, but I also speak Italian because I am Italian. And in regards to my parents were born and raised in Italy, and after they got married, they came out to Australia, and I was born here. So I'm sort of the first generation Australian from Italy, you could say.
Joe, how long have you been playing music?
And I've been in the music game for, crikey's, it's a long time. I mean, I first picked up the guitar when I was 15 years old. Then when I was in my early 20s, I played in a lot of local bands, cover bands, and then later on joined some original stuff. So I've been in the industry in a professional way, probably for 30 years in this industry. And yeah, I love what I do, my music. And also with my writing, I've been writing since the dawn of the internet, really, in the early 90s. I always loved writing from when I was at school. And but making a living from writing, I've been doing it for the last 25 years. And I write for a lot of great guitar magazines, especially all the ones in the US, like Guitar Player, Guitar World. Yeah. And I've written for, other magazines too, like Goldmine, Record Collector. I do some stuff for The Guardian. So, there's a lot of stuff I've done, which, is great. So it sort of blends in my love of writing and my love of music together. So there's sort of 2 sides to my career, the musician side and then the writing side. And now I'm also an author. I've written 3 books, and my latest book is this book on ABBA's 3rd album, the self-titled 1975 album, the one I consider the breakthrough album that made them into international stars. It's called the Making of ABBA, the 1975 breakthrough album. So we're talking about that today.
Hi, this is Max Beck from Sweden. You are listening to Derringer Discoveries.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Julian Taylor from Toronto, and I've enjoyed listening to Derringer Discoveries.
Joe, what prompted you to write the book?
Look, I've always loved ABBA. I bought the album, this particular album that I wrote about when I was 10 years old, when it first came out in 1975. And I fell in love with it, and I fell in love with pop music. My first memories of music and what I fell in love with music was the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds album, which I had when I was 4 years old. And I never forgot that, and loved it. And then when this album came along, the ABBA album, it just solidified my love for pop music. And, it led me on to many, many different sort of styles of music, because this album does go through different styles of music. So it really could say it started my whole passion for music for my life.
Joe, there's a lot to unpack in your accomplishments. Let's start with your solo career. My understanding is that you had at least one hit album in Australia. Can you tell our listeners what was the album, when was it released, and how high did it peak on the charts?
Okay. Yeah, well, it's really interesting because it's a different style of album that I normally do. My earlier stuff was sort of rock stuff, you know. I did some early instrumental stuff like Joe Satriani, then I sort of moved into much more rock pop stuff, and now I'm sort of a singer-songwriter, acoustic artist. But this album in particular, I was a bit of an experimental album where I experimented with electronic music, like, you know, keyboards and acoustic guitars and sounds. And put it together as an instrumental ambient album. And so anyway, a label in Australia heard the actual album, and they said they think there's a market for it and they wanted to release it. So I signed to the label and they released it, and he gave me my very first top 5 selling album in Australia back in 2023 on the jazz and blues charts. In Australia, we have this chart called the ARIA charts, which is the equivalent to Billboard charts in America, or the Billboard Hot 200 for the album. So in Australia we have this chart, and it's got categories, like it's got rock category. So mine was in the jazz and blues, being an ambient sort of instrumental album. So it debuted on the chart at number 4 and stayed in the top 10 for 3 weeks, and in the period it was in the top 10, it outsold albums by Miles Davis, Frank Sinatra and Fleetwood Mac, which was astonishing, you know, especially in a climate where, you know, streaming and downloads are, you know, all the go. I mean, this is a CD release, so it was fantastic. So yeah, the album's called The Lone Runner, and like I said, it's a very much instrumental ambient album where you sort of chill out to it, relax after a hard day's work, and put the CD on and just sort of lose yourself in the music. And yeah, look, it's still got melodies to it, and you know, it's done really well. So I'm really pleased with my experimental album, which was never planned to sort of be released, but it is, and here we are.
Joe, in addition to writing and releasing your own music, I understand you've also written, recorded, and performed with the British band The Corgis.
That's right, yeah.
Listeners, the Corgis had a global hit song in 1980 with Everybody's Got to Learn Sometime.
Everybody's gotta learn sometime. Everybody's gotta learn sometime.
That song, Everybody's Got to Learn Sometime, was written and sung by Corgis band member James Warren.
Everybody's gotta learn sometime.
Listeners, in 2025, Everybody's Got to Learn Sometime was featured in the hit ping pong movie Marty Supreme.
And it's only a matter of time before I'm staring at you from the cover of a Wheaties box.
Everybody's gotta learn sometime.
So, Joe, what was your connection to the Corgis?
Well, first of all, I had the Corgis album when that came out in 1980, again, going way back. And my connection to Corgis is I started working with the band in 2022. How it all started was basically, a year before that, I interviewed James Warren. I used to have a YouTube channel where I would interview, during COVID, everybody had sort of, interviews to do. So I interviewed him, and we got to talking after the interview, and I said to him I was a musician and I had some music, and he goes, oh yeah, well, send some stuff over. So I did, and then, we got to talking, and I said, I'm always up for collaboration, and, they said they would too. So I sent them some demos of my stuff, and they really loved what I did. So they decided to co-write some material with me. And our first single we wrote was called Always a Sunny Day, which came out in 2022. The deal with the Corgis is we both co-write material together. We both play our parts together, record it, and we release it, but under both names. So it's always released as the Corgis plus Joe Matera. So it's really good because I brought in my sort of element of my approach towards rock and pop, and they are brilliant pop writers and musicians themselves. So it worked really well. So since then we've released 3 tracks as singles, official singles. And I've actually played some shows with them. I went off to the UK in 2024 and actually performed our material we co-write for the first time live on stage, which is fantastic. And we've got an album out currently for a US label, which is called Coffee in New York.
So why don't we meet up for coffee in New York?
And basically it's a collection of some Corgis classics, plus a 2025 version of Everybody's Got to Learn Sometime. plus all our collaboration pieces together. So the Joe Matera Corgis tracks, which is about 3 tracks. Then 2 of my own solo material tracks, and then 2 of Al Steele's solo track, which is Al Steele is the Corgis full-time guitar player. So it's great. They're great guys to work with, really, really wonderful. We have a great connection. So yeah, and, it's been like 4 years now, and our plan is to continue writing and recording and continue doing shows as long as we have the passion for it.
You are listening to Derringer Discoveries.
Well, Joe, we're here today because you wrote a book that was published this year, 2026, about the Swedish band ABBA and their global breakout year of 1975.
That's right, yes.
Listeners, 1975 was the year that ABBA became global superstars. The album that made them global superstars, as Joe mentioned, was their 3rd studio album, and as Joe noted, it's simply called ABBA. It was released on the 21st of April, 1975.
ABBA's 1975 album charted in 11 countries. In the U.S., it sniffed the top 200. In the UK, it peaked at number 13. In Australia, Norway, and ABBA's homeland of Sweden, it shot all the way to number 1.
Joe, you didn't just write a book about ABBA. Through the years, you've performed, written, and recorded with members of ABBA's backing band. Tell our listeners who you've worked with and when.
Okay, I've worked with Jan Schaffer. Now, Jan Schaffer is one of the guitar players who played on all the ABBA albums, most of the classic hits too. So ABBA, you always used, there was 3 main guitar players that were used. And Jan Schaffer is actually one of the most recorded guitarists in Sweden. I mean, he's played on over 5,000 songs. He's sort of the equivalent to what Steve Lukather is in the States.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere, that's right. Yeah, so, and ABBA only used the best musicians they had in Sweden. So Jan Schaffer was the guitar player. He, first of all, became a fan of my music, which I didn't know this. When I went off first to Sweden back in one of my tours was in 2019, and I was doing this in-store concert for this record at this record store in Stockholm. And when I got there, the guy said to me, Jan Schaffer wants to meet you. And I said, Jan Schaffer? And he goes, yeah, the guitar player from ABBA. I go, yeah, I do. And he goes, he really likes your stuff and he wants to come and see you when you do your in-store. And I go, really? And I was like, wow, how could someone all the way from Sweden know my music, Right. And the guy in the record store said, well, he played in my stuff, and he really loved it. So anyway, I did the record store in-store, but Jan, because he's always so busy doing shows and that sort of stuff, he sent a message that he couldn't make it that time. He said, contact him and, get in touch. So I did, we developed a rapport, and I said to him, look, I've got this song, would you like to guest on lead guitar? And he did. So he played on one of my songs called Take a Look. And then later on, I sent him one of my musical pieces and said, would you like to co-write something with me? And he goes, yeah. So, we co-wrote this instrumental called Continental Meeting, where we both play lead guitar on it. And, you can hear it on Spotify and YouTube, and it's great. And so, we sort of developed this rapport, and I've interviewed him quite a number of times for my book, and I've done articles on him and that sort of stuff. So it was really wonderful to get an insight into the workings of ABBA from a perspective of the musician who was there for the whole period.
You are listening to Derringer Discoveries, a music adventure podcast.
Yeah, those are 2 songs that Joe Matera did with Jan Schaffer. And Jan Schaffer was the longtime guitarist for the band ABBA.
Usted está escuchando Derringer Discoveries.
un podcast de aventuras musicales.
Joe Matera, we're here because you wrote a book about ABBA's breakout album from 1975, and we thought for our countdown, it would be good to stick to that album and have you count down your 5 favorite songs from that album, and then tell us a little bit about each song as we count them down. So let's start with number 5. Alton, what is at number 5 on today's countdown?
Hit number 5.
Listeners, before we got together with Joe to record this episode, we had some email correspondence back and forth, and Joe told us that his number 5 song from that album is So Long. So, Joe, did I get that right?
That's correct. Yes, So Long. So Long was the first track released from the album, which was still in its process of being made. So this was released in November 1974. The album was only half finished by then, but they released this track. But it didn't do too well for them. It did make the top 10 in countries like Sweden and Austria, but elsewhere, like especially in the UK, for example, a lot of the critics thought it was too similar to their hit Waterloo. We had the same sort of glam rock sort of beat. But I loved it. It's a great rocking track. I mean, ABBA really rocks on this track. Jan Schaffer is the guitar player on this track. I mean, I have to also mention that on all the tracks on the album, Bjorn played rhythm guitar. So Bjorn was the rhythm guitar player on every track. But when it came to lead guitar, you had the 3 guitar players who were chosen to play the lead. So, but on So Long, that's Jan doing all the lead stuff and Bjorn playing the rhythm. And this rocks, And look, I have to mention something which I haven't mentioned before, which is a bit of a insight, which I'm sure people are going to go out and listen to this now. So right at the end of So Long, as the saxophone player does that sort of that little riff, if you listen carefully to the start of the Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin, you'll notice it's the exact same riff that Robert Plant does. He goes,
Yes.
Interesting.
So I'm not saying that they copied it, but it's sort of a coincidence that it's exactly the same. I hear the same thing.
Who would have thought that Led Zeppelin would have something from ABBA? I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, look.
That was not on my bingo card.
Oh, look, you'll be surprised. I mentioned in my book the amount of people who've come forward about being ABBA fans, who at the time would never admit to it. But, everybody from the Sex Pistols to Kiss to Rainbow to you name it, Lemmy from Motorhead, they were all fans of ABBA. But, back in the day, nobody would admit to it because it was very uncool, especially if you're a punk rocker, to say you loved ABBA. But, hey, there you go. Led Zeppelin were fans because they used, they later on went off to Sweden and recorded In Through the Outdoor at ABBA's Polar Studios.
Oh, interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they did. And actually, I think John Paul Jones actually used the White's Moog synthesizer that Benny used on the album Arrival.
That is my favorite Zeppelin album, and a lot of Zeppelin fans really argue with me about that because they can't.
Oh, I agree. I
why.
reckon it's a great album. I reckon it's very underrated. It should be up there above. I reckon it's probably better than number 4.
Wow.
I would agree with you completely.
So listeners, at number 5 on today's Derringer Discoveries Top 5, that's So Long by ABBA, as selected by our special guest Joe Matera from Australia, who this year wrote a book about ABBA's 1975 eponymous breakout album. Rob, what's at number 4?
Hit number 4.
Listeners, when you think of ABBA, you may think of the dual female voices of Agnetha and Anni-Frid Frida, but at number 4, our special guest Joe Matera has picked an instrumental song called Intermezzo Number 1. Joe, please tell our listeners, why did you pick an instrumental for number 4
Well, first of all, this influenced my own playing. I mean, a lot of my early albums were instrumental albums, so, I've got a lot of instrumental stuff. This is also the only time ABBA ever recorded an instrumental. They did record another one, the title track to Arrival, but on that one there, they do use some wordless sort of vocals from Anna Fried and Agneta. But this one is totally instrumental. It's a showcase for Benny Andersson, whose piano playing is absolutely magnificent. There's all these classical influences show up on this. It's a very prog rock piece. It rocks hard. You can hear Benny's influences such as J.S. Bach and Rossini on this, who was two fabulous composers of his. And it was also a showpiece for Benny, where they would take a break, the girls would take a break, and he'll come out and do this instrumental piece live. And another thing about this track too is, back then it was pretty courageous to really include an instrumental track on a pop album. I mean, that was really unknown back then, but they did it, and they did it successfully. So that's why I chose Intermezzo number 1. And the reason why it's called number 1 was there probably were plans to do another one.
They're figuring it was going to be the first of many.
That's right, yeah.
Listeners, at number 4 on today's Derringer Discoveries Top 5, that's Intermezzo number 1 by ABBA, as selected by our special guest, Joe Matera from Australia, who this year wrote a book about ABBA's 1975 eponymous breakout album. Paul, what do we have at number 3?
Hit number 3.
Thanks, Rob. Let's quickly just recap the 4 namesakes of ABBA, because we've been throwing around the names, but make sure our listeners know who we're talking about. So ABBA is the first letter of each of the 4 core members' names. Joe, can you just give us those 4 names real quick?
Okay, so you got the first A is Agneta, then it's B for Bjorn, then another B for Benny, and then the other A is Anna Fried.
And I think it's safe to say the 2 women do the singing most of the time, and then Benny's the piano player and Bjorn's the guitarist?
Benny's a piano player and Bjorn's a guitar player. They do also some, throw in some little backing stuff, vocals in there. But it's basically the girls who do all the backing and the lead vocals. And it's layered stuff. It's just magnificent how they layered their vocals in the studio. But they are the voice. I mean, without those girls, as Benny's always said, the sound of ABBA is really all 4 of them. But those girls are, as they say, the cream on the cake.
Listeners, before I reveal Joe's pick number 3, I want to note that today marks the second time that we have talked about ABBA on a Derringer Discoveries episode. After you listen to this episode, we encourage you to check out the first time we talked about them. It was way back in January of 2022, more than 4 years ago. It was Derringer Discoveries episode 28, and other than the fact that we were talking about ABBA, one of the things that made the episode special, it was our first episode with Laura Derringer.
Isn't it great that she's here with us for this episode?
Well, she's not with us for this episode, but she was with us for the first time. So listeners, at pick number 3, and let's make sure I say it as many times as I need to say it. It's I do, I do, I do, I do, I do. That song, I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do, was a big hit in at least 14 countries. It went to number 1 in 5 countries, including Australia. Joe, please tell our listeners, why did you pick I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do for number 3 of your top 5?
It's an easy way to say, just say I do 5 times,
I do by 5, yes.
Look, the reason I picked this is because this is a type of song that really showed you the diversity in generations that loved ABBA. I mean, this song, my grandparents loved it, my parents loved it, because it's got the nostalgic sort of 1950s sound to it, which is ABBA really connected with all age groups, which is something that like unusual in pop music, because usually pop music's a certain genre, which is like maybe teenagers or something like that. So. And I picked this one too because it's the very first song that gave them their first number 1 in Australia. This is one that sort of broke them big here, and it led to the other tracks going to number 1. For example, when this went to number 1 first for 3 weeks in Australia, then it was replaced by Mamma Mia for number 1 for 10 weeks, which was replaced by SOS at number 1 for 1 week. So 14 weeks straight they had a run in Australia with this. So, and look, the other thing about this too is it's got very American sounding to it. Like Benny said, he was influenced by the orchestral leader Billy Vaughan and the sax player from the 1950s. So And the other thing too is, if you listen to this song, again, ABBA were ahead of its time because it's very unusual to have a pop song with a sax playing on it, sax solo. And you can tell that the following year, Al Stewart had a hit with Year of the Cat with a sax solo, and then the following year, Jerry Rafferty had a solo, sax solo in Baker Street.
Baker Street, yeah.
Yes,
That's
Baker
right.
Street.
Yeah. So you can tell they will listen to ABBA.
Yeah. Listeners, at number 3 on today's Derringer Discoveries Top 5, that's I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do by ABBA, as selected by our special guest, Joe Matera from Australia, who this year wrote a book about ABBA's 1975 eponymous breakout album. Alton, what's at number 2?
Number 2.
The listeners, at number 2 is Joe's selection, Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia, now I really know. I could never let you go.
Just like I Do times 5, it went to number 1 in 5 countries, including Australia. Joe, tell our listeners why you picked Mamma Mia as your number 2 choice out of the top 5.
Because it's one of their most recognisable songs. Everybody knows Mamma Mia. And as soon as you hear that, you know, wow, you know. And again, we went to number 1 in Australia for 10 weeks, as I mentioned earlier. But the other thing, too, that's interesting about this track is it was the last track recorded for this album, and it appears as the first track on the album. So it was done in March 1975, so just in a month before the album was released. It was a sort of almost like a last-minute addition to it, and what a great choice of song. You know, lucky it was on the album because, you know, it's such a catchy anthemic song. But not only that, it also reverses the usual pop dynamic formula, which is usually you have a verse that's quiet and then you have a chorus that comes in with an anthemic, you know, sing-along. ABBA did it reverse, where they had the verse loud and the chorus quiet, where those vocals come in, which is something that Nirvana, Kurt Cobain, picked up on, because Kurt Cobain was a massive ABBA fan, and they took, you know,
I would not have figured that.
Oh yeah, when you listen to the dynamics of Smells Like Teen Spirit, you can tell, like, you know, they reverse it, but they use that technique of the dynamics where soft to loud, you know, and the thing about Kurt Cobain is, I mean, he was such a massive fan that when Nirvana played the Reading Festival in 1992, they would not play the festival unless Bjorn Again, the ABBA tribute band from Australia, were the opening act. So they basically flew all the way to England to open for Nirvana, and they got such a great applause, you know, and Kurt Cobain was so pleased that they played. So there you go. I mean, another fan of ABBA who we would never thought was a fan.
That's amazing.
Oh, no. That's some deep trivia.
Is. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mamma Mia, now I really know. I could never let you go.
Listeners, at number 2 on today's Derringer Discoveries Top 5, that's Mamma Mia by ABBA, as selected by our special guest, Joe Matera from Australia. Guess what? He wrote a book about ABBA's 1975 eponymous breakout album. Rob, Paul, why don't you all split number 1?
Hit number 1.
Listeners, ABBA continues to be a major force on the world stage. On Spotify, they are routinely in the top 200 recording artists in the world.
And Paul, presently right now, ABBA sits at number 125 worldwide on Spotify.
At number 1 on today's countdown, as picked by our special guest, Joe Matera, the song is, and Joe kind of gave it away a few minutes ago, it's SOS.
So when you're near me, darling, can't you hear me? SOS.
Just like Mamma Mia, SOS hit the charts in at least 16 countries.
And just like I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do, and Mamma Mia, SOS went to number 1 in 5 countries, including Australia.
When you're gone, though I try, how can I carry on?
In the U.S., SOS appeared on 6 separate charts, peaking at number 15 on Billboard's U.S. Hot 100.
Joe, please tell our listeners, why did you pick SOS for your number 1 selection from ABBA's 1975 eponymous breakout album?
Because it's my number 1 pop song of all time. And Pete Townsend said the same thing. He said it's the perfect pop song ever written.
Yeah.
So good esteemed company there. But yeah, it is my number one pop song. It's a song that even to this day I still analyse and study because it's got every element you want that will make a great pop song. You've got great melody, you've got the melancholy mixed in with the uplifting chorus, you've got everything. It's a masterclass in songwriting. And the other thing too is SOS was a song that inspired Glenn Matlock to write the Sex Pistols track Pretty Vacant. So
really,
that shows you how much effect that ABBA had on the Sex Pistols, that Glenn Matlock was listening to them and wrote that song. So absolutely, my number one pop song.
Listeners, at number 1 on today's Derringer Discoveries Top 5, that's SOS by ABBA, as selected by our special guest, Joe Matera from Australia. And as we've been discussing, he wrote a book this year on ABBA's 1975 eponymous breakout album.
Joe, before we wrap up this episode, do you have any shout-outs to friends, family, or fans?
Oh, just all the people all the ABBA fans who love ABBA and want to read a book that's from a different perspective. Because, all the books are out there. I've got all the books. They're all fantastic books. But I wrote this book because I thought there's no book from the perspective of a musician who's worked with one of the actual, musicians in the ABBA circle and tell a story from that side of the fence, you could say, and really delve into the music itself and, come up with stuff that maybe people haven't sort of noticed before. I've had a lot of messages from people who've had the book who said to me that they really appreciated me writing this book because they pulled out their album, they had to listen to it again, and now they hear things they never heard before. And they said they really reappreciated ABBA even more now because of my book, which is fantastic because that was my job, is to make people go out, listen to the album and say, hey, now I know why this band is so great and why so many people name check them, because they got great music. So if you maybe didn't appreciate ABBA back in the day, well, with this book, hopefully you'll appreciate them now and respect them for who they were, really, which were a great pop band, great songwriters, and just great musicians all around.
Joe, where can our listeners find your book?
They can find my book on Amazon.com. And that's probably the best place to get it, or they can go to any bookstore and put it on order. But usually I find, as you did yourself, Paul, Amazon is pretty quick. I think it's 2 days or something delivery.
It was fast. I got it in about 3 days.
Yeah. So that's pretty fast. And they must admit Amazon do a great job and stuff. So It is published through a UK publisher, but in America it's distributed through Simon and Schuster books.
Good.
Fantastic.
Joe, we want to thank you for joining us today. And this is the time in the episode where we give you an award, or we dub you something honorary, and that is, you are now, in addition to being Joe Matera, anytime you want, you can call yourself Joe Derringer.
And there was much rejoicing.
That's right. Going forward, you are an honorary Derringer. Once an honorary Derringer, always an honorary Derringer.
Oh, wow, having Derringer name. One of my favourite guitar players is
Rick Derringer.
Rick Derringer. That's Derringer. Right. Yeah. Look, Derringer, it's a pleasure and it's an honour. So yes, and look, thank you so much for having me. And you have a great podcast, Derringer Discoveries. You certainly discover some great acts and artists out there. So keep doing the great work. Thank you so much for your interest in my book and my career, and all the best to you. And thank you so much for making me an honorary member.
Well, thanks for being here today. Yeah. We really appreciate it. Appreciate your time and all the tales you've given us. So that's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
This has been Derringer Discoveries, a music adventure podcast. Song snippets were used in this episode to aid in the discussion, critique, and analysis of the songs.
We encourage listeners to check out the artists discussed today. You can listen to their respective songs on most digital streaming platforms, including Spotify and Apple.
And don't forget to pick up Joe's book on Amazon. Listeners, you can follow Derringer Discoveries on social media. We're at DerringerDiscoveries.com on Blue Sky, Derringer Discoveries on Facebook, and Derringer Pod on Instagram, X, and Threads. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. You can also subscribe to our podcast so you never miss another episode. We will drop links to Joe's social media accounts in the show notes for this episode.
And I'm very accessible, like you said, social media. People can find me on Facebook and send me a friend book request. I've got a website just under joematera.com, but I'm very accessible. I have a lot of people sort of, message me. They can ask me questions, whatever. And I'm always online, as in posting updates. So they can keep track of all my projects and ABBA stuff.
Listeners, if you're a fan of the band ABBA or pop music in general, be sure to go out and buy Joe's book. It's called The Making of ABBA, the story behind the band's breakthrough 1975 album. It's available on Amazon or wherever you buy fine books.
Until next time, I'm Paul Derringer.
I'm Alton Derringer.
I'm Rob Derringer.
And I'm Joe Matera from Australia. Now, an honorary Derringer, Joe Derringer.
Yeah.
Listeners, thanks for tuning in today.
In your sister's room. That's where it started. In your sister's
And usually, when I did the shows with them, I was the opening act, so I would play my own little half-hour opening set of my own music on acoustic guitar, and then they will come on and play their stuff, and then I come in halfway and we play our material together.
And you get paid double for that, right? Opening and playing?
I wish.
It's eponymous? Is that how you say it? Eponymous?
Yeah.
Let's see, where does that take me to? Listeners.
I don't know if I spaced out or if you jumped ahead or both. Maybe both. Laura, do you have a car phone? I feel a little better if Dick Clark made that mistake because...
Let me just start that again.
That's going to go straight to the blooper reel, so just...
It is. Rob, Paul, why don't you all split number one?
Oh, Rob, you can go first.
No, Paul, really, you go ahead.
Paul wants the last word, trust me.
We could keep doing this back and forth.
Good. We put it to rest right here on Derringer Discoveries.
That's right,
There you
absolutely.
go.